Tonight on The Wrap, after days of suspense, Wes Streeting confirms he will run to replace Sir Keir Starmer if a leadership contest is triggered.
We need a proper contest with the best candidates on the field, and I'll be standing.
Using a think tank speech earlier today as a launch pad for his campaign, the former Health Secretary said he believes the UK should rejoin the EU. A city divided, 4,000 police officers deployed to the streets of London to marshal two separate protests. The day ends peacefully.
A Scottish season that gave us so many stories ends with the same old story. Celtic are champions of Scotland.
Celtic celebration and hearts broken. The Edinburgh side concedes two late goals in a 3-1 defeat to be denied their first Scottish title since 1960. We discuss the day's biggest stories with London Politico Playbook reporter Bethany Dawson and defence editor at the Daily Mail, Mark Nicol. Plus, the first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including the Daily Mail, which says Wes Streeting is turning the screw on Burnham over Brexit. Good evening, Bethany and Mark. Welcome to you both. Now, a leadership contest might not yet have been formally triggered, but that didn't stop the former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, confirming today that he will run to replace Sir Keir Starmer if there is a contest. During his first speech since resigning from government on Thursday, Mr Streeting said the Labour Party needed a proper contest with the best candidates in the field. In a moment of courtesy to his rival, the former Health Secretary said that it was not in the national interest to hold that contest before Andy Burnham has the chance to return to Parliament. So a bit of courtesy in politics. Did that surprise you, Bethany?
I wish I could say it was definitely courtesy, but when I've spoken to Wes Streeting allies this week, they really want this contest to include Andy Burnham so that, in their hopes, they win it and face absolutely no accusations that it was an unfair contest or a form of coronation. Mark?
Similarly, I mean, I think it was the only realistic option. It would have been brazenly opportunistic for him to have attempted to do otherwise. It's a sensible move.
Might have been hard for him to recover.
It's going to be a long race as well.
Well, Wes Streeting confirmed to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, that he would stand. Here's John's report.
Are you going to stand for the leadership, Mr Streeting? You're going to stand for leader?
Cometh the hour, cometh the man.
Have you got the numbers?
Wes Streeting chose to break his silence after his cabinet resignation at a conference of like-minded Labour progressives. And he ended speculation about whether he'll stand for the Labour leadership in answer to a question from Sky News.
Mr Streeting, you've just called for a proper contest for the Labour leadership and you called on Labour to step up. Are you going to step up and contest the Labour leadership? End the suspense now, please.
John, we need a proper contest with the best candidates on the field, and I'll be standing.
In his speech, he said he wants a contest.
It's got to be a battle of ideas so that whoever wins comes out stronger for it. Because when Labour loses, the country loses.
He also delighted this audience with a call to reverse Brexit.
We need a new special relationship with the EU because Britain's future lies with Europe and one day, back in the European Union.
Are you here to support Wes Streeting, Mr Kyle?
Right. Earlier, Mr Streeting won strong support from his friend, the business secretary.
As Emily says in The Devil Wears Prada, you have no idea how many legends have walked these halls, she said. Well, not really legends, but supermodels, and some are legendary. Well, Wes is legendary, and a good, solid, courageous friend who is a talent that is much needed by this party.
Andy Burnham, Mr Streeting's likely leadership rival, was meanwhile campaigning in the Makerfield constituency he hopes to win in a by-election. But although many here at the Progress Conference back Mr Streeting, some support Mr Burnham.
I think he's got the right sort of personality as well, of course, the record of what he's done up in Manchester. So that's why I'd back him.
I'm still supporting Keir Starmer. I just think we're letting ourselves down by it being like a soap opera, you know? So I think the process of it is wrong.
Well, I think Wes Streeting's a kind of generational talent in the Labour Party, and I think he's got a big role to play in where we go next.
So Mr Streeting has dramatically ended the will he, won't he speculation about whether he'll run for the Labour leadership. He's first out of the blocks and has a head start over his potential rivals, such as Andy Burnham. Mr Burnham has still got to fight a by-election to get back into Parliament. He may not even win it. And now Mr Streeting has thrown down the gauntlet. His campaign starts straight away. John Craig, Sky News in the City of London.
And John joins us now. And John, you were first out of the blocks, weren't you? You got the answer to the question that everybody was asking.
Well, he dropped a pretty heavy hint during the speech when he talked about the need for what he called a proper contest. Everybody knows that Andy Burnham wants to stand if he wins his by-election in Makerfield, and so Mr Streeting was basically saying, "Well, I'll be part of that contest." Now, what happened? You asked about my question. What happened was I put my hand up, as you do, and I got called first. And of course, you always worry when you don't get called first that somebody else is going to get the question that you want to ask. Anyway, he was very candid. He gave me an honest answer straight away. I was slightly surprised he didn't announce it during the speech, though, but it made it all the more dramatic when he revealed his intentions in an answer to a question. And you heard the applause he got there. He got big applause also from that audience when he talked about reversing Brexit. One day, he said, one day we should go back into the European Union. Now, that audience, they're Labour progressives, they're on the right of the party, pro-European. They loved that. But, of course, political opponents in other parties will attack him over that. Although Mr Burnham seems to be pretty pro-European as well, and he wants closer ties with Europe. So the stage is set, really. I mean, we've got one candidate for definite. If Mr Burnham wins his by-election, no means certain. Reform will run him close, no doubt. They'll try to anyway. That's probably going to be on the June the 18th. What's probably going to happen now is that Jonathan Reynolds, the Labour chief whip, will perhaps move the writ for that by-election, perhaps on Tuesday in the House of Commons, we think. And that's a June 18th by-election. So the two can't really start kicking lumps out of each other until after June the 18th, really. Although, to be fair to Mr Streeting, he was asked a question about Mr Burnham, and he was very polite and said, "I'm not going to criticise a fellow a Labour Party person," a bit like Ronnie Reagan always said, "I'll never criticise a fellow Conservative." So, at the moment, Mr Streeting's promising a clean fight, presumably with Mr Burnham, and he has got a head start. I mean, he's got an advantage. He can spend the next 4 weeks talking about his vision, his plans. He talked a lot about that. When he talked about a proper contest also, he criticised the 2020 race when Keir Starmer won. His opponent was Rebecca Long-Bailey, and it was very one-sided, really. Mr Burnham, of course, has stood twice before, 2010 and 2015, 4th out of 5 in 2010, 2nd to Jeremy Corbyn in 2015. So they're off, they're under starters' orders, and it's Mr Streeting who's first away.
He is indeed. John, thank you very much for that. So Wes Streeting saying today, "I know how to win." Pretty confident, although he's, as John was saying, not willing to criticise any potential opponents at this point.
I think what he wants to avoid as much as possible, and it's not easy to do that now, is any more allegations of sort of chaos, of drama. And he wants, you know, again, as far as he can, to make this seem like a sort of sensible contest. You can see that insofar as he's not firing that starting gun before Andy Burnham has had a chance to come back as an MP. You can see it by him being polite to his theoretically political rival. But there is a lot of kind of love lost now. There's been so much chaos in the last few weeks, and it has not put Labour in a good light. It has made Labour seem kind of like the party they were trying to convince the electorate to vote away. They look like the Conservative Party and all the chaos that we had in the last government. So Wes Streeting has a lot of work to do to make himself seem kind of sensible here.
And also for Andy Burnham, the contest isn't on yet by any means, because he still has to win that seat in Makerfield, which isn't a shoo-in necessarily.
No, and I don't think he can afford to be as overtly pro-European as Streeting, at least not at this stage, because of the fact that Makerfield is less pro-European than the remainder of Manchester. Manchester voted predominantly Remain, but Makerfield did not. So if he's going to lose support to Streeting on that issue.
Well, although in some of the papers today, there are those in the Andy Burnham camp who are briefing that he is pro-EU.
It's interesting, they are briefing these pro-EU, and Burnham has been very outwardly pro-EU, telling the last Labour conference that he hopes to see the UK rejoin the EU in his lifetime. But the I paper is reporting that allies close to Andy Burnham are actually saying he's planning to sort of row back a little bit on his kind of pledges to join the EU, focusing more on sort of a special relationship than full rejoining. That sounds kind of like Labour's position now under Keir Starmer. And again, this makes a lot of sense. Makerfield voted 65% to leave the EU. This is not a sort of Brexit or Remain rather friendly area. So it makes sense that Burnham would want to row back. But, you know, on the other hand, Wes Streeting has, of course, come out incredibly pro-European Union. I think people are going to take kindly to a Labour politician that actually picks a side of the fence on Europe, with Keir Starmer and then Jeremy Corbyn before him being quite indecisive in some ways in terms of their views on the UK's relationship with the EU.
Mark, do you think that will be received positively by the electorate, the fact that Wes Streeting has kind of dropped a bombshell, really, but saying that, you know, he'd like to go back into the European Union one day, actually being so definite in that?
I think, and I speak personally, as someone who was a Remainer and someone who would like us to see us rejoin the European Union, I think it's wonderful to hear a senior member of a major political party address the elephant in the room. So I'm delighted.
You're delighted. Let's see how many others are delighted with you. So in terms of the timetable, the applications to become a Labour candidate for Makerfield seats close on Monday, and then the NEC will endorse a candidate on Thursday, a by-election possibly by the 18th of June. That's quite a fast turnaround.
It's a very fast turnaround. Again, in terms of the chaos, maybe it will help that things are moving quickly. I think it's in the interest of the Labour Party to move quickly, because otherwise this is just going to stretch out for a very, very long time, this sort of quasi-leadership race. We're not actually in one. No one started a leadership race. But the other people that will be grateful for a quick turnaround are other people that want to contest this election, this contest, rather. You know, Angela Rayner rumoured to want to be in the running, Ed Miliband maybe. You know, they're not going to want the spotlight to be on Andy Burnham and Wes Streeting for any longer than it needs to be.
Although we suspect that they might not step forward, and it might just be a two-horse race, apart from other political parties. And we know that Reform, Nigel Farage is saying that they're going to throw everything at this to make sure that Andy Burnham doesn't get in.
Yeah, it's for people interested in politics, it's going to be a very interesting few weeks.
In terms of Reform, they did quite well in the local elections. So although it's previously been a safe Labour seat, it looks like things could change this time round.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure a safe Labour seat necessarily exists kind of anywhere anymore. But yeah, Wigan went Reform, Makerfield being in Wigan. And they did well at the general election last year. I mean, there were 6,000 votes between Labour and Reform, Reform coming second. I was speaking to John Curtis, the kind of polling guru, the other day about this race, and he was saying that this is going to be harder than Gorton and Denton, the race that Labour recently lost to the Green Party. But Burnham is sort of a special character within this. You know, any other Labour politician, he said he would give Labour just a 5% chance of winning Makerfield, but Burnham could potentially be someone that could win it for them.
Interestingly, yes, he is the King of the North, after all, and the most favourable in the polls of any Labour politician, so we shall see. Well, next tonight, 4,000 police officers were deployed to the streets of London today at a cost of £4.5 million to police two separate protests. One march, organised by far-right figure Tommy Robinson, was called Unite the Kingdom. The other was a pro-Palestine event to mark Nakba Day. Despite 31 arrests across both protests, the day ended peacefully. Tom Cheshire reports.
In a week with an intense focus on Westminster manoeuvring, this is proof that a different form of politics has well and truly arrived in Britain. Regular mass protest, right and left wing. Keir Starmer called the organisers of the Unite the Kingdom march thugs and racists, peddling hate and division.
People like us nowhere as a badge of honour.
So you're happy being called far right?
We laugh at it,
yeah,
because we know we're not.
Starmer to call everyone racists makes no sense. I've got Asian friends, I've got black friends. It's the immigration that's the problem.
We want the correct message being said on there, not the fake message that, you know, we hate everyone and we're racist, because we're not. You know,
I've not heard anyone say anything like that today.
No, not one bit.
No.
So we want the correct message that we're just here for our country and everyone to be united.
I've heard a couple of things about Muslims in particular, which were certainly racist. So
I do apologise on their behalf because that shouldn't have been said.
This is the man they turned out for, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson. The anti-Islam activist has repeatedly demonstrated that he can turn his online influence into mass rallies on the street.
Are you watching Keir Starmer? This crowd, that helicopter goes from here for miles. Today, I want to ask you all something. Are you ready for the Battle of Britain? Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
They've been kept well away from the other big march today, the annual Nakba March, that marks the displacement of Palestinians as part of the 1948 war between Israel and several Arab nations. The protesters at Unite the Kingdom bristle at being called far right. Here, the charge that they deny is that pro-Palestinian marches are increasing anti-Semitism in the UK.
There is no anti-Semitic undercurrent to this march. There are no anti-Semitic undercurrents. There are a very large number of Jewish people on this march as well.
If you look around you on this demonstration, you can see people from every background and from all walks of life, including hundreds, if not thousands, of Jewish speakers. That has been the case on every single demonstration that we've organised. Today there are multiple Jewish speakers, including an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor.
This march was not just about Palestine, but also specifically against Tommy Robinson.
How do you feel about the Unite the UK march, the Tommy Robinson march, half a mile from here on the same day, on this day, the Nakba Day?
I think it's a tool. Tommy, you're a tool. Next question.
The feeling is mutual in both crowds.
This is now an established feature of British politics. Both sets of rallies have been turning out people repeatedly in large numbers. This is a politics that exists outside the usual power structures of British society.
Handling that required a huge police operation, with 4,000 officers on the streets and facial recognition also deployed. Both protests proceeded without significant incident, the Met said.
Oh, Tommy, Tommy!
For all the passion and mutual animosity, they have something in common. Both sides happy to make their voices heard. Both sides thinking that protest, not traditional politics, is the only way to do that. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Whitehall.
Mark, first of all, I just wanted to ask you whether you thought the marches should have been allowed to go ahead. 4,000 police officers on the streets at a cost of £4.5 million. Was that worth it?
Well, definitely, they should have both been allowed to take place. I think it's quite reassuring that the two marches were able to take place side by side without 31 arrests, considering 50,000 people on the streets. I think the police would be very relieved that it was as low as that. And as expensive as it is in terms of additional policing requirements over time, other resources, the right to demonstrate is such a fundamental part of democracy that absolutely. So I'm quite pleased to see two such disparate groups exercising that right to protest simultaneously.
Bethany?
I think politically, if these marches weren't allowed to go ahead, it would have been incredibly difficult to manage the reaction. These are both groups who previously have criticised the government, saying that they limit freedom of speech because there have been previous suggestions that marches such as these wouldn't be able to go ahead. But I think, you know, these really just represent a very split country, a lot of polarisation and groups that feel like they have been demonised and ignored by the government, and they have to kind of make a lot of noise like this in order to get their message heard.
And people on both marches for very different reasons, but recurring themes in both of those is really anti-government and anti-Starmer on both sides.
Yeah, I thought the Tommy Robson supporters, from that footage, and I wasn't present, appear to have toned it down quite considerably. I mean, for "We want Starmer out," it's quite a tepid cry, considering that's what's going to happen anyway as a result of the Labour Party moving against him. Normally, or on previous marches, you've had more insightful language. I don't know whether there was a deliberate move on their part to
that's interesting. Bethany, do you think that they were encouraged to tone it down, or perhaps even warned that they have to tone it down this time round?
I am not in any sort of organising groups around these marches. I would be quite surprised if sort of a WhatsApp went out and said, let's tone down the language, and everyone sort of nodded along and agreed to that idea. But definitely from those clips, I mean, maybe it's because other clips had language that couldn't be aired. But, you know, as you say, "We want Starmer out" is not necessarily the sort of hateful or
we've seen violent clashes with police. Well, none of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, this doesn't... Again, as you say, 31 arrests with no serious incidents is almost a surprising headline. I mean, it's one that is, again, grateful to read that there were no serious incidents. But there was a world in which that was very different, and language plays a really big part in that, definitely.
Yeah, and quite surprising when before the march went ahead, 11 foreign nationals described by Sir Keir Starmer as far-right agitators were barred from entering the UK ahead of the rally. So there was the anticipation that there would be a lot of trouble.
And you might have thought that the government's moves to prevent those individuals entering the country would have triggered a more aggressive stance today by the protesters.
But nonetheless, it is indicative of the fact that there will be some individuals who subscribe to, you know, extreme far-right views who would have been on the march today.
Absolutely. And again, I think the thing that is surprising is that there were no serious incidents, no clashes that we've previously seen before. But, you know, whether it is the government sort of really cracking down, I will say, not to make it all about Westminster politics, but the topic we were discussing before, the sort of Labour leadership crisis. I mean, I am sure Keir Starmer's government and Number 10 are actually very annoyed that there is a lot more conversation about what Wes Streeting is doing than what seems to be the very successful management of these very delicate situations.
Yeah, might be well right on that. Shall we move on to some football now? To Scotland, where it's been an agonising day for Hearts fans. Their hopes of being Premiership champions were dashed by Celtic, who won 3-1 in today's decider. Hearts were looking to break the 40-year-old firm stranglehold on the title after leading for most of the season. Rob Harris reports from Glasgow.
Celtic are champions of Scotland! In the end, it was just as before. Celtic, champions again. Heartache for Hearts. The Edinburgh outsiders looked through Scottish football's glass ceiling, but couldn't shatter it. No first title in 66 years, no seizing the Premiership trophy from Glasgow for the first time since 1985. First place held in the Premiership since September was snatched away in the last game by Celtic's victory.
This full season has been absolutely mental. And to have a day like this is unbelievable. From where we were at some points in the season to today, and the atmosphere everywhere is totally flipped.
Rarely in any league does the title come down to a showdown between the top two. Hearts only had to avoid defeat. And having held on for 43 minutes against the run of play, they were in front. Delirium across in the capital. It didn't last long. Penalty awarded in Celtic's favour. Level at the break, but still advantage Hearts, clinging on until the 87th minute. And as Hearts chased an equaliser, a third for the hosts. And as the party went into the night, I encountered Celtic's most famous fan.
Did you feel any sadness for Hearts at all?
Of course, of course they've worked so hard this year. Football's football.
And what does this Celtic team mean to you? They put you through it all, but champions again. You've seen it so many times.
Champions again, champions again.
Did you think this season it might be one year?
No, we knew we would win it.
Did you come here expecting to be celebrating?
Yes, 100%.
So the trophy stays at Celtic, stays in Glasgow, as it has done now for 4 decades. But if not now, when? When will a club outside this city finally get their hands on the silverware again? Even in a season of struggle and strife for both Celtic and Rangers, the old firm stranglehold on the trophy is maintained.
Celtic now winners of 14 of the last 15 titles, moving ahead of Rangers as record 56 times champions.
This is bedlam. I don't know whether the final whistle has been blown.
So again, this is Celtic's day. Hearts dreaming one day it will be their day. And it isn't always Glasgow sharing the Premiership glory. Rob Harris, Sky News, Celtic Park.
And that's not the only major sports news we have this evening. Manchester City have won an 8th FA Cup, beating Chelsea in the final at Wembley. The only goal of the game was scored in the 72nd minute by winger Antoine Semenyo, earning head coach Pep Guardiola his 3rd FA Cup trophy and first in 3 years after back-to-back defeats. So, Mark and Bethany, an interesting day in football. You had to feel sorry for those Hearts fans, didn't you?
It's tragic, as tragic as sport ever gets. Hearts came extremely close to a very significant achievement. And it has been the most interesting season in Scottish football in living memory. And I think anyone outside the camps of the most fervent old firm supporters would have been wishing Hearts well today. Even their cross-city rivals in Edinburgh, Hibernian, their fan base is divided. Many wanted Hearts to win just to break the supremacy of Celtic and Rangers after so long.
Yeah.
And you just hope they get the opportunity to do it again.
It would have been a fairy tale finish, wouldn't it, Bethany? And many saying that, this isn't a one-time thing. This has really changed Scottish football, and we will see Hearts back at the top again.
Absolutely. I mean, there has been so much more talk about Scottish football. I will confess that I am not the biggest football fan, but even I have been aware that it has been a big season. So, but my heart goes out to Hearts, especially as a Spurs fan who knows what it feels like to be struggling at the moment.
What defeat is like, yes. Yeah, my husband's a Spurs fan, so we won't talk about that anymore. He's thoroughly depressed at the moment. But just a little bit of controversy because of the decisions, VAR, and also that pitch invasion by the fans before the match was over.
Very unpleasant to see, but VAR has played a very key role in both the English and Scottish title races, with Celtic being seen by many to have been fortunate to get a penalty in the last minute against Motherwell in the week, and that changed the dynamic of today's game.
Yeah, a little bit of controversy, but we cannot change the result, so congratulations to Celtic. I think I can say that and get away with it. I won't be executed on the way home. Coming up next, we'll take a first look at what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Do stay with us if you can.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Time now to see what's making the front pages of Sunday's newspapers, dominated again by Labour's leadership tensions. Well, survival of the fittest, writes The Observer, fittingly alongside a picture of Number 10's Larry the Cat, who's currently residing with his 6th Prime Minister. The Mirror splashes an exclusive with Andy Burnham, who outlines his plans for changing Britain, including more control over life's essentials like energy providers and a surge in council house building. The Express picks up on Wes Streeting, saying he wants Britain back in the EU, which campaigners have told the paper would be a Brexit betrayal. The Sunday Times also references the former Health Secretary's Europe pledge, calling the decision for Britain to leave the single market a catastrophic mistake. A similar angle on Brexit is on the front of the Sunday Telegraph, while the Mail's headline reads, Wes turns screw on Burnham over Brexit. The Sun reports on what it calls a Royal Cops misconduct probe. The Sunday People looks at a bid for the North of England to host the Olympics. And on the front of the Star, a pledge from England World Cup stars to get a special celebratory tattoo if they win the World Cup. Very negative director in my ear said, which they won't. That's not the spirit. Let's start with the front page of The Observer, and that headline, survival of the fittest, alongside Larry the Cat, who is at the minute serving his 6th Prime Minister. Will he serve a 7th? Bethany.
Well, I hope he makes it. He's quite.
He doesn't look that well, does he?
No,
he's quite old now.
Yeah, he is not a spring chicken anymore.
No.
But he did catch a mouse the other day, so he is still.
Oh, okay.
He's still performing his duties. But yes, I mean, assuming that all is well and good with Larry, who I'm a big fan of, to admit a conflict of interest here. Yes, it seems that he will be serving a 7th Prime Minister as Chief Mouser. And The Observer has, a bunch of really interesting stories, one of them focusing on all the love that is lost within Labour now, just with Tom Baldwin, a biographer of Keir Starmer, describing the Prime Minister as feeling as though he's been betrayed by members of his cabinet. These people are actually incredibly close, some closer than others, but the factions that Labour is so good at forming have now sort of reached the absolute top and really fractured the Labour Party and the cabinet that we have to remember are still meant to be working together and getting through policies and delivering what they were elected to deliver.
Well, that's interesting. There was a piece yesterday quoting civil servants saying that the business of government is on hold until any leadership contest goes through, that nothing will happen, nothing will work.
Well, I wonder if anyone will notice the difference, because it has been government with the handbrake on for 2 years.
The Observer Inside as well, quoting, briefings from Shabana Mahmood and saying that she could be the kingmaker in the leadership battle, because she did actually last week urge Sir Keir Starmer to set out a timetable for his departure. So her name coming into the frame as the one that might, fire the starting gun.
Yeah, I think refreshing so far that it appears to be a battle based on ideas rather than personalities, which I think has got a refreshing change from what politics has become recently. It's been dominated by personalities for me, and not enough on policy.
And do you say that because Wes Streeting is saying that he will not fire the leadership contest until Andy Burnham has a chance to fight for Makerfield?
Yes, it doesn't seem like either one of them is going to take a sledgehammer to the other one. I think it's interesting. I think what worked for Labour in getting them into power has not worked in office, and I think Starmer has been too overly process-led. In my area, there have been multiple failures. For example, the failure to publish what's called the Defence Investment Plan, that has just stymied everything. So I thought Streeting came across as having quite a lot of elan and vigour today, and I think it was a refreshing change.
Although the Mail saying that Wes is turning the screw on Burnham over Brexit because he dropped that bombshell today, saying that at some point, one day, he would like to see the UK back in the EU.
He's absolutely been successful in making sure that the attention is on him and his policy decisions. You know, whether it's turning the screw, Burnham is incredibly pro-EU, and we've known that for a long time. He told Conference last year, actually not something too dissimilar from what Wes Streeting said. He said that he hopes to see the UK rejoin the EU sometime in his life. Both of these commitments, or both of these you know, hopes for rejoining are very vague. They are policy platforms, sure, but without a sort of, if I become Prime Minister, it will happen by this time. So, you know, there's not a lot of absolute certainty, but what there is more of a discussion, as you say, on ideas, on policy, and actually on decision-making. And one of the things that we've seen repeatedly in letters from ministers resigning and MPs calling on the Prime Minister to go is criticism of not enough movement, not enough certainty. And maybe Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham today are showing that they're going to be different to that.
Yeah, certainly Wes Streeting being very definite about that.
I think it's really encouraging, really encouraging. He's probably the most talented minister. I think it's a shame the way politics works, that he has proved an effective health secretary. You know he's deeply passionate about the job. That's always come across. But of course, what that ensures is that he isn't health secretary for that long, because he may turn out to be a dreadful prime minister. You don't know, but either way, the country loses an effective and passionate health secretary.
Well, back to Brexit on the Sunday Express and their headlines suggesting that there's going to be further turmoil over Brexit because, as you say, both potential candidates are pro-EU.
This is almost ending up sort of being a mini referendum, you know, with Nigel Farage as candidate versus essentially a pro-European candidate. But absolutely, there will be people today that were watching from home or sitting in the Prospect Conference who were thrilled fundamentally just to hear a Labour politician make a decision and say something firm. There will be lots of people, especially within that conference, who were thrilled to hear someone be so outwardly pro-EU. However, there will be a lot of people, as represented on the front of the Express, that will be horrified by this idea that we could have a Prime Minister that is essentially pledging to undo the results of a referendum. Now, obviously, there are lots of arguments to counter that. Brexit maybe hasn't gone the way that some people were hoping it would. You know, again, without a leadership contest even having started, a potential next Prime Minister is already getting enough attention to be criticised on the front of papers with their policy platforms.
And this lines them firmly up against Reform, who said in Makerfield, Nigel Farage has said that, you know, they will throw everything at it to make sure that Andy Burnham doesn't get in.
Very much so. I mean, a predictable Sunday Express headline, shall we say, that it's talking that it might wreck Brexit. I think Remainers will say, well, what is there of Brexit to wreck? When Starmer did his reset speech last week, he talked about Britain returning to the heart of Europe, but without any commitment to either rejoin the currency union or the union itself, which was ludicrous for that reason. You can't. It was rhetoric without policy. Streeting, the difference today, has given you policy, albeit with a considerable room for manoeuvre on timing.
Bethany, it does give Reform, you know, a real cause to go up against, though, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And I was speaking to campaigners in Makerfield who were saying they're already finding, you know, on sort of day two of campaigning, a lot of support for Reform and the Greens in Makerfield. So people who were... this probably is not going to win any Reform voters. Whether the sort of strength of opinion alone can make people decide that it is at least, you know, this could at least see a Labour Party that would be more communicative and clearer on what they want. But I think it's definitely a very bold choice. I'm not certain I completely understand it, aside from, again, that show of wanting to pick a side. Again, Makerfield being a very much Brexit-supporting area, this is quite a surprising choice for Wes Streeting to go down. But you know, I'm sure over the next a few days, we'll figure out more of his rationale.
What did you make of people in Makerfield? How are they sounding?
The people, I mean, Labour politicians are very nervous. This whole week, there have been lots of different rumours about lots of different things circulating around Westminster. And one of them was who is going to resign their seat for Andy Burnham. That was understood that someone would. And mostly Greater Manchester MPs were the ones that were assumed to be stepping down. Again, as you said, as a pro-European region and a pro-Andy Burnham region. But then, shockingly, the former leader of Labour Together, a very Starmerite think tank, resigned in order to let Andy Burnham run, very much opposite on Labour's own political spectrum. But the immediate reaction from people was, this is going to be so incredibly difficult. This is not a safe seat. Reform loomed very large. As I said, Wigan in last week's local elections went to Reform. Makerfield is in Wigan rather than Greater Manchester. So this is going to be difficult, and I don't think anyone in Labour is going to breathe a sigh of relief until about June the 19th, and even then it might just be relief it's over rather than any form of celebration.
Yeah. And Mark, what did you make of Josh Simons stepping down in order for Andy Burnham to be selected potentially to take Makerfield? There was some criticism, quite a lot of criticism, that it smacked of entitlement. Jess Phillips was saying that you know, that you can just hand your friend a seat, as it were, and there's the real people's lives that we're talking about.
But it might be a hospital pass. I mean, obviously, it must have been done with Burnham's approval. But he might have preferred someone to get. He would have had to. The onus would have been on him to take a seat, or attempt to take a seat in his region. So that limited his options. But there were a number of Labour MPs in constituency that were more inviting for Burnham, who didn't step aside. Right. So he only had so long to find somewhere. Yeah. So he didn't have that many. He didn't have as much choice.
Yeah. Best of what was being offered, I guess. He's on the front page of the Mirror, pictured looking prime ministerial, do we think? How I would change Britain, Bethany.
Well, again, this is setting out a policy platform, and you can see that both Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham are essentially trying to communicate their message, which is something that we have heard basically from day one of Keir Starmer's government, that Labour don't do. And in fact, even during the general election, their platform, of course, they had a full manifesto which promised a lot of different policies, but it is generally accepted that Labour won the massive landslide they did because they were not the Conservatives. So they sort of won on default without having to pitch a massive message. Their message was, in fact, just change, whereas we see today the two sort of front runners in, again, the race that hasn't even started yet, really setting out what they want, going, you know, Andy Burnham here going into the intricacies of public control of life's essentials, public services being something that a lot of people feel are failing them at the moment. So you can kind of see how these two men and the teams behind them are really trying to fix Labour's comms problem and the lack of message, the lack of plan that seems to come from that party.
Yeah, Wes Streeting saying that Britain needs to build a new politics. We want to listen to what people are saying. Labour is listening.
Yeah, I mean, scouring this article, I don't see much here that you haven't heard multiple Labour ministers say for the last couple of years, that the issue has been getting the big policies off the ground. Hints at renationalisation was part of the Starmer reboot speech. It's not as new and compelling as the immediate offer from Streeting for me.
Streeting obviously got the history of how he's handled the health service, many saying that, you know, he's done a very good job. And also with Andy Burnham, well, the King of the North, he's done fantastic things in Manchester, as reported, and is hoping to bring that Manchesterism to national government.
It's interesting, I think, although Andy Burnham is not in Westminster's government, he has kind of a broader brief with Manchester and can talk about, and has been talking about, different areas of policies for a long time, whereas Wes Streeting's been quite confined to just talking about health. And one of his allies was saying the other day, you know, actually the public haven't seen Wes Streeting's politics because he's been confined to cabinet and indeed shadow cabinet. So I think possibly one of the reasons we see this sort of bombshell promise, idea, whatever you want to call it, from Wes Streeting saying that he wants to rejoin the European Union is almost to break the mould of just being the health secretary or shadow health secretary. Whereas, as you say, Andy Burnham has been sort of almost pledging his message of what a King of the North country would look like for a while.
I don't think it's to his advantage that the King of the North thing, because he may be seen as too regional in his appeal, where he's got to reach beyond the Northwest.
Yeah, interesting. And there have been some pieces about whether he's recognisable outside of his area.
It's 16 years since he first stood for the Labour leadership. It doesn't seem fresh or new.
That is a long time, that is true. We are going to take a break. Coming up, Manchester City are the new FA Cup champions, but there's also news from beaten finalists, Chelsea.
I will always remember the atmosphere at the Shanghai protests. It was an electric mix of excitement, fear and defiance, and a sense that history was being made.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, eh?
Let's go. Watch way, right? We're going to get in. Right. Get in. Get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
But that is what it's like. Sometimes we have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparency in journalism. We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
We gather, analyse and visualise data to tell data-driven stories. Sky News has been given exclusive data. Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in. Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story? I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
But I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Time now to catch up with all of the very latest sports news with Chris.
I knew offers had coming through the summer, came down like last night, done the medical this morning and delighted.
Eventually, when I did sign him, we had to pay a little bit more money for him, like from 4 million to 12 million, but he was worth every single penny of it.
Aston Villa were ploughing a lot of money into a team to try and get them into the Champions League and try and compete in the top four. We had a great core of like really good individual players, and we felt like we were equipped to go and challenge.
He was a leader straight away. He was a big voice in the dressing room.
They wanted me, and the hierarchy at Newcastle weren't too convinced in terms of their confidence about giving me a new contract. Kevin Keegan, I think the manager at the time, he was a fantastic player. I was loving my football in front of him and playing well. But you know, the people upstairs had other ideas at the moment, and that was the way it went.
Even a hailstorm couldn't prevent James Milner from practicing free kicks.
He was always questioning players if they haven't put the effort on training. He always believed that you have to train the way you play.
It was like having another coach on the pitch. That's the difference in a player like that. Players who see things, who understand things, but also can give that detail out on the pitch.
Milner! Another stunning strike!
I had a captain at the same time called Gareth Barry, and Gareth was quite quiet but led by example, and James was alongside that.
We're pretty similar characters. Where we probably differ is away from the training ground. He's not got a switch. You won't mind me saying this, I don't think he switches off as much as I did.
He's quite intense in terms of information he'll be talking to people about. If he's playing right wing and he wants to know what the right back's doing.
He's a student of the game and goes away and studies it. How does he get better? Body positions, defending.
His demand on the pitch and off the pitch was really high. We all having a meeting upstairs in the quarantine. Everybody just taking their coffees, teas. Rather than the manager, James Milner stand up. He gave us a lecture about how bad we are at training. We were all like, wow.
If we can keep improving, hopefully at some point we can crack that top four.
It's Milner! How about that? A laser-guided finish from James Milner.
Massively underrated. I think a lot of people think of him from a fitness point of view and the fittest player in the Premier League and the man who beats the fitness tests every summer, but it's so much more than that. Technically so good.
He would have, they used to say way back in my day, lived right.
Our pre-season used to be wild, and one of the days we had a day off, so we all went out, we had a couple of drinks. Obviously Matt O'Neill found out that we broke the curfew, and the next day we had to train, and James Milner, because he never came out with us. He was in front of all the runs. He was taking people on. He was shouting. He was aggressive, just to show that, you know what, guys? If you go out, if you enjoy yourself, make sure.
Let's see what the weather's going to do to us now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, the current cool and unsettled spell will continue for another few days before the weather becomes quieter and warmer. Temperatures toward the end of next week will reach the low to mid-20s Celsius for some. For now, rain clearing eastward will linger in the far southeast and over central and northern Scotland. Showers will persist in the north and west, but it will become largely dry elsewhere. Parts of Scotland may turn cold enough for a frost overnight, but it will be a little milder elsewhere. The day will start dull and damp in the southeast.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.